Hey, is this Andy?
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey,
How you doing?
I'm all right. Just waiting for this weather to clear.
So what is going on over there? Can you be our weatherman for the day on the East Coast?
Well, I mean, as far as Richmond goes,
Yes.
I mean, they were saying early on before the hurricane hit that we were going to get like 40 or 50 mile an hour winds, and they kept downgrading it, and we just never really got anything beyond just a breeze and a lot of overcast weather and some rain, but we've had a whole lot of rain anyway, so it really hasn't been anything noticeable.
So what brought you to Richmond, and how long have you been there?
I would say I'm a DC refugee. I was living in DC and just got the culture, the whole Discord scene just faded away, and the culture just got more white collar, yuppie, got really expensive, and the traffic is just miserable up there. So
And
if that answers you.
what kind of scene have you found in Richmond? Like, what have you discovered there?
Oh, it's a decent metal scene, although I really wasn't into metal so much when I moved here. A lot of the scene seems to be driven by PBR. It's maybe it's that way elsewhere, but I've never seen so much PBR drink in my life than when I moved here. There's not a lot of the bands really impress me here, punk bands at least.
What about the venues themselves?
Everyone seems to harken back to the days of this club downtown called the Flood Zone, and the venues here when I moved here didn't advertise in the paper. It was like you had to really seek them out online to find out what was going on. It was really everything seemed to be like really underground and obscured. So I can't say I've been really impressed with like the live music scene. It's here and whatnot, but you got to really pay attention to it.
Is there a certain band that is like the band of the moment there, or a band that everybody kind of looks to? Like if we could be like them.
Like in the punk scene?
I mean, just in general.
I think to a lesser extent, Avail was that way. I mean, they've retired, as according to Ed Trask. It's a very insular scene. I joke that Richmond's a gigantic small town. I just don't know, like, I'm not real connected with like all the people. They know me from, the videos I do, but I really can't say, this one band is the vanguard, if that's what you're saying, of the scene. I really like the metal band Windhand right now, but they hardly ever play in Richmond. Their career is more in Europe. I wish I could be more specific and answer that better. I wouldn't say it's like the strongest punk scene here. It's here, but there aren't bands that pack the clubs that are from here.
I think Carter said that the JFA was going to come through there and play a club called Strange Matter.
Yeah,
I believe one of your videos was there too.
Oh yeah. That used to be Twisters long ago. I do videos in there some. Yeah, I plan on being there. Carter's a good friend of mine.
So taking it way back, are you originally from Reston?
Oh no. I'm originally from Santa Barbara.
Oh wow, you're from out here. Why did you ever move?
That's a popular question with me. Divorced parents, mom remarried, moved us around.
And what was it about Reston? Was it a job or,
Oh, yeah. Well, I was actually, what brought me to Reston? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, I was living with my mom in the San Diego suburbs, and her husband lost his job and got a job in Reston, and the company was real adamant about hiring him and flew us all out there to look at houses and stuff, and then we moved there, and it was a major culture shock in January of 1985, moving from sunny Encinitas, California to cold Washington, D.C. in January.
So, was there anything that you did like immediately about being in Reston?
The trees. That was about it. You're in the woods. We lived off a glade and deep in the woods in one of those wooded streets there.
I lived off Glade too.
Okay.
I lived off Timberhead, like right next to Lake Audubon.
Okay, yeah, I was down by Glade and Soapstone. Real beautiful part of Reston. It's my favorite part of South Reston is those streets. Carter lived in between Glade and Lawyers. Those streets there.
Yep. Yeah, my uncle lives back there too.
Yeah, no sidewalks, just real rustic neighborhoods. A lot of people didn't even have grass yards, just a wooded yard.
And so how long did it take you to sort of discover the punk scene in Reston?
I didn't know there was one then. I was already into all sorts of I guess you could say alternative music. I was really into ska back in 84 or so. And just started, realized 91X in San Diego. Are you familiar with that station? Is it still around?
I don't know that one.
It was the really great radio station for the whole San Diego area, and they played all sorts of great music. It's before Clear Channel or whoever bought them out. And that really exposed me to a lot of cool stuff. And the whole punk, just alternative music scene in San Diego was really noticeable, even in the junior high school. So I took notice to that. Was definitely listening to different music. So by the time I got to Reston, I remember Andy Wells was in my PE class, and he had like some buttons on his shirt or a Suicidal Tendency shirt or something, and I started talking to him about punk, and he was telling me about some bands. So what was the band that got you?
What was the band that got you into punk rock, like in San Diego, or what was like your favorite ska band at that time?
Oh God. Well, I mean, I started off as just a dorky poser. I was more interested in the way the ska guys were dressing, and I was like, "Damn, those guys look cool." And someone told me, "Yeah, those are ska guys," and I ended up buying the first record I actually bought as as a junior high student was This Our Two Tone, the compilation. Maybe you've never heard of it. It was a whole bunch of the ska bands, but the specials, particularly the special songs on there, were really good.
Yep,
So
that'll do it.
Yep.
So you met Andy. Were there other guys that were local that were, getting started in their own bands and things like that too? That you
Not
were going
in
to school with,
85.
or?
No, I mean I was just barely 14. I never heard of anything, and the once I got into South Lakes, like the older punks really didn't socialize with the younger ones. It was I knew very few of them. So really it was just sort of on my own. I had a neighbor down the street from me that went to a private school in DC, and he was getting into punk, and he was turning me on to a lot of the DC stuff.
Like what?
He had the that Discord 7-inch compilation with the SOA, Teen Idols, Youth Brigade government issue on it. That I think that was like my first introduction into like DC hardcore. And I didn't really care for it. And then a month or two later, we're at Kemp Mill Records in South Lake Center. It's long since gone. And he and I were looking through the records, and there was the Minor Threat Salad Days 7-inch, and we chipped in both $1 or so and bought it together.
That's so cool that you guys bought a record together.
I
never
still
heard
have
of
it.
that.
Yeah, and it was a 7-inch.
You won
too.
out.
Yeah, well, he went down the Grateful Dead route eventually, and so that was pretty much given to me.
Yep. That's fine. all the better. Lost another good one, I guess.
Yeah.
When did you start getting into photography?
Oh, I mean, well, back when this Fairfax County Public Schools actually had a soul. They had an art program, and that was part of their art program was a photography class. We had a. Did you go to South Lakes?
I did, and I took photography.
Okay, they still had it. All right. Somehow I was told that they got rid of like most of their art programs, and definitely the photography was gone. But
well, I mean that was probably 93 that I took it. So
okay.
I don't know in the last 25 years.
Yeah. I haven't even stepped foot in Reston in 13 years, I think. Yeah, it was just a photography class.
I was horrible at rolling film.
So was I.
It was really frustrating, and I lost early on. I lost like what I thought was a really good roll because I rolled it so badly. And then after that, one of my best friends, this girl Stephanie Blum, I got her to roll all of my film for me, like the rest of the class.
Did you use the metal one, the metal rollers, or the plastic?
Yeah, those metal rollers.
I used to practice those all the time, and it seemed like I could do it fine practicing. But then, when you're in that actual closet with no light at all, like it's a different game.
Yeah, you'd be in the closet, and you might be reaching into that bag thing, like to make sure that no light reached it, and people will be knocking on the door because they wanted to use it. There'd be all this pressure, and I just cracked.
Yeah.
But I mean, I loved that class, and I loved the just using the bath and seeing the photos appear in them. Like a large photo. It was like that experience of a Polaroid, but, writ large.
Who was your teacher?
I believe it was Miss Severnsass.
Okay, I guess Dotterwick was gone by then. Yeah, but that, so that's the answer to your question was just, I still have my dad had got me when I was in 6th grade, a pretty nice point and shoot camera. So I had a little bit of an interest in it. It was a lot of money though to have that stuff developed and whatnot, but, so it's just basically how it started. I didn't have any aspirations to be a photographer. I just wanted to give it a try. I wasn't into painting or sculpting or anything like that.
When was the first time that you actually, took it to a show?
It was probably that Jamfer Man. Like I had no experience. I look at those pictures and I'm like, God, I had no idea what I was doing. I don't think I had a zoom lens. Maybe my teacher loaned me one. I can't remember. Like a lot of those shots are out of focus. I'm like it's embarrassing. I told Brian Stewart, I've sat on these for years because of my horrible photography skills and not shown really hardly any of those to anyone. But I think that might have been the very first one. I just thought, let me get pictures of this. This might be a big deal. I remember getting to the venue or on the way to the venue, actually stopping at a drugstore to get film. I didn't have film on me, so.
How did you hear about Jamfer Man? Do you remember, or what band were you excited about going to see?
I mean, Jamfer Man came almost a year after Reston had established some shows. So we already had a community there.
And so you'd gone to a lot of shows, both, like house party shows before
Well,
that?
Carter mentioned the very first one that I knew of that I ever went to was at Susan Medville's house. I don't know why she had that. I think she had a crush on Andy Wells. And her, it was just very out of character. She really wasn't a punk rocker. She was a good friend of mine, really cool lady. She used to be a professional skier. And she had Hostile Environment and LDK play in her finished basement, and the neighbors didn't call the cops, and it was LDK blew me away. I couldn't believe how good they were.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I think at that when you interviewed Matt Kozowski, he failed to mention. I mean, he just didn't tell all the details, but after they were practicing in Betsy Nord's house, they moved their practice spot into my bedroom for the summer of '87. I think Betsy's mom was moving out of state, and so that practice spot, and Betsy was going off to a private school in Colorado, so that's why they moved out of there.
And so with like the drum kit and everything?
Oh yeah. I had the basement room of one of those Weston townhouses, and you know how they usually have like a laundry room, like a half bath, and then a big room. Well, I had that big room, and so I had plenty of room down there.
Sweet.
And they would practice, you know, when everyone's off at work. You know, they come over right after school, or you know, in the middle of the day, and play loud as anything. And most people were off at work, and so no problem.
What do you remember from those days?
Of Hostile Environment practicing in my bedroom?
Yeah.
I remember learning, Matt would leave his bass there, and I learned how to play bass a little bit and by watching Matt, and Matt showed me some stuff. Matt was really cool with that. I remember one time, they were, because Jason Radley, the guitar player, really wasn't a punk rocker, and he was perfectly skilled at playing music with them. In fact, he was probably a little bit better of a musician than they were. They wanted to find someone more punk rock, and you know that's kind of typical. You know, you want to have you're seen as insular as possible, and I guess they blew off his calls when the next practice was, and Jason calls me, and they had told me that they were going to kick him out and find someone else, and Jason calls me. It's like, hey, when's practice? And I basically said, I thought that they were kicking you out or something like that. Like I had to be the bringer of that news. I was kind of pissed, but yeah. And they tried out this one guy, and it just didn't seem to work out, they were debating, and I didn't want this debate to be going on in my room, you know, like after the guy had left, and I just said, you know, Pat, this guy's not working out, and Pat just blew up at me, and then they just packed up, and I don't know where they moved to. Pat had a explosive personality. He was the singer of Hostile Environment.
And was Pat playing anything at that time?
He was just a singer.
Okay. Because then later on when Matt left, he switched to playing bass, right?
Yes. Yeah. But but not with Hostile Environment. I don't think he played any shows playing bass. He was always just a vocalist.
What did you think of his vocals?
Intense. I had Hostile Environment, and you know, I had them come practice because I really thought they were great. When the one time I saw them practicing there at Betsy's, I remember really loving that song "Insane at 17." Ben's drumming. they were good. They had this like groovy, aggressive vibe to what they did.
Now Pat and Jason went on to play together in Remission, right?
Yes.
So I mean, they must have been at least somewhat close, or at least like somewhat digging on what the other one was doing.
Yeah, Remission was much more melodic and a little bit more mature of a sound. I could tell that's what Jason was more vibing on. I mean, Jason was definitely checking out new music. He wasn't, like as Matt said, he was much more of a classic rock guy. But Jason, like was definitely branching out.
But Pat must have been willing to go with him.
Yeah,
and branch out there.
Yeah, I still remember Remission's first show in a basement, and like literally like the first song, the whole audience, all 30 or 40 people packed in that room were just dancing and going crazy. Like they were great from the first song.
What was the Remission song that like stuck out for you?
It might have been that song I mentioned. That it's stuck on my demo tape somewhere in a case of mine. I think it's called "Blow Out the Breath." "Watch Me Now," maybe, is that it? Yeah, that I think they opened with that, and I just remember people just jumping around, loving it. And I was super impressed. I'm like, wow, these guys have that like Discord-esque DC sound.
What was the difference between Ben's drumming and Andre's drumming, you think?
Oh, I mean, I don't want to criticize either one. I always really liked Ben's drumming.
I'm not asking you to criticize. I'm just saying in terms of your perception of their playing.
I think Andre was a little bit harder of a hitter. A little bit more in the pocket. Ben was a little bit more like faster energy thing. Like Andre had played in some go-go bands, and so Andre really, and that's what a drummer in a go-go band does, is just get in the pocket and let basically the bongo players jam out.
What did you think of any of that, like, go-go that was going on at the time with, like, Split Decision and, cause I know that he played in that band and he also played in another Herndon go-go band called, Unity.
Yeah, you're talking about Split Decision now. You're asking about that.
I'm just curious, like, from somebody that was more into the punk rock, but also the ska side, and then you moved to DC, sort of like how accepting were you of the go-go that was going on at that time too? And the fact that, like, guys were crossing over essentially between, playing rock and even playing punk and playing go-go.
I thought it was cool. I didn't really, definitely, punk rock, is very intolerant of other things. Like the real, purity of punk rock is a lot of people, rip on any other genre, whatever. But I was always open to other things. It was fine with me.
It's funny. It seems like Split Decision gets more respect than Crunchy Water does, for instance. Among the punk rockers, even though everybody loves the Caters and Sam. Yeah.
The first time I saw Split Decision was in Sam Gunderson's basement. There was a high school party, and Derek Decker was playing drums, and Sam was playing bass. Tarek was on guitar, and Derek Decker and Sam rhythm section was ridiculously good. That was absolutely the best lineup I saw in that band. As far as the bands crossing over from other scenes, I thought that was cool. I never wanted to limit myself to playing or listening to one kind of music. And as long as you can do it well, that's great. If you suck at it, then I'm not going to pay attention. But I think that was just sort of the vibe. And Reston was to we had public housing in Reston, so we definitely had I don't want to be politically incorrect or anything, but we definitely had a ghetto element in Reston that definitely kicked the white bread people in the butt a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes punched them in the mouth.
Yeah, unfortunately, that too. But I'm saying, musically though, we definitely had, and just culturally, that it wasn't just a bunch of white middle class kids in Reston.
Well, yeah, I think it was also the influence of being so close to DC too.
Oh, sure. Go-Go being so big in DC was big with the suburbanites as well. And
but it also wasn't just go-go. It was like there were a lot of people that were listening to early rap and hip hop stuff also.
Not in the punk scene.
I knew guys that were into Public Enemy, and NWA. and some of the bands that were like harder and mixing in kind of like rock elements to it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, maybe later on. I mean, that music was around, but I don't remember a lot of people trying to play it. No.
Oh no, not necessarily playing it, but I mean, like, you know, skating to it, or just like, you know, driving around to it, or
Not my car.
or or it playing on, you know, like a boombox in the lunchroom or something like that, or in the art room.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I didn't pay attention to it. I liked the License to Ill, BC Boys. I liked Run DMC, and then most of what came after that, I didn't care for.
Yeah, but that's still like, you know, that sort of time of 1987, 88. There was you know, some of the rap stuff had pretty hard like rock beats.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, listen to the License to Ill. They were sampling Zeppelin.
Exactly. I mean, I loved License to Ill, and
Yeah.
that was one of the albums that got me into rap.
That album was every party I went to in like 86, 87, or every high school party that was being played. That was just omnipresent at every social gathering of Southwest students back then. It was big.
Yeah. So that's all I mean is that people were crossing over and listening to a lot of different stuff, as long as it was,
Yeah.
you know, as long as it had a pretty hard beat to it.
Sure. Or
It
had some sort of defiant message.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So your nickname was Guitar Jamie.
No, not then. It's just sort of my media name now for my YouTube channel. I don't like using my real name for those videos. I'd rather have all the focus be on the band and not me. And if you're referring to the pictures that I uploaded, putting the Guitar Jamie on it, is that what you're talking about?
Well, I mean, just by the sheer fact that you're going by Guitar Jamie, I'm just wondering where you picked up that moniker.
I just was, when I got internet, I had to create an email for my internet, and it's just, I really love guitars, and I used that, and then I just, when I wanted to upload videos to YouTube, I just decided to use that name. So it's not anything people from Reston know me by or anything.
Well, when you said Matt was teaching you some things on the bass, were you also playing guitar during that time?
Carter started showing me how to play some guitar right after that. I played bass for about 6 months, and then one of my neighbors was throwing out like a Sears guitar or something, and I ended up rescuing that, and Carter showed me how to play some stuff. So,
did you think about starting up a band yourself?
oh, I'm too ADD to really play with a band. Carter and I used to jam all the time, but we used to play LDK songs. No, I never was in a band.
Yeah, but you got to play with the drummer from Knothead and JFA, so.
Yeah.
So that's not bad.
Yeah.
So what do you think were the best set of pictures that you did take of any of the shows that, you know, you were photographing during that time? Did you ever get good enough to really get a good set of shots?
Oh yeah, I still got more to come. I think it's getting processed right now. I believe it's Jam for Man 3 at the community center. I got some shots of ale. Those look pretty good. It's hard to tell when everything's, just on a contact sheet or just the negatives, whether or not anything, you took black and white photography. It takes like, 45 minutes just to print one picture. And, within an hour class of your assignment, you just, like, it was just, it was hard to really see what was good and what wasn't.
Yep. Yeah.
So thankfully, this digital revolution, it can rectify some black and white that are stuck on, film.
Was that Jam for Man 3, you think the best lineup that you saw?
I'm just saying like the
wrestling show.
I thought you were just referring to whether or not.
I do mean the photos, but I mean, I'm just curious. Then, what was the best? What was the best like full on concert?
Jam for Man 2 was pretty fucking fun. It was. I think I ran out of film. I had taken so many pictures. I don't have anything of LDK. When the LDK went on, it was chaos. It was fun. It was intense. At one point, it was one of those Jam for Mans where Split Decision played, and you definitely had some young black go-go fans there, and some fights broke out real briefly. But with the pit going on and stuff, and, a bunch of young bravado around there, the Fairfax County Police was in there, a few of them, but everything got broken up and the show went on, but it was fun. It was intense. It was hard to believe that the Wrestling Community Center was allowing this. Wrestling is just so much about rules and regulations and just nothing. Wrestling doesn't promote anything of independent nature. Everything has to be some sort of group, team sports. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying, but explain it, because you're in some respects explaining what all the punk bands were rebelling against.
I've been thinking about this a lot the last few days. Reston is a rare planned community. There's only, I believe, one other, Columbia, Maryland, in the country. Reston. It was basically the brainchild of a financial elite. What is that? The Carnegie family. What's his name? Robert E. Simon is a family member of the Carnegies, as in Carnegie Hall. And it was his idea to try to create this perfect community, and it was a lot about rules and it was all planned out, as the word means, and if you weren't deeply involved in academics or school sports or what the municipalities they had there, the basketball, the pools, the tennis courts, like, you were really left to your own devices. And Reston really wanted the perfect family, and these kids weren't from the perfect family, and they were trying to find something else to do other than sitting around watching TV at home. And I think the DC punk scene, the whole Discord thing that was so big in the early 80s, I think that was permeating into Reston by the mid 80s. This is pre-internet, so and those records were hard to come by. Brian Stewart had a lot to do with that. Getting those basement shows going really influenced a lot of other kids to start bands. We didn't have that before. I remember being my first year at South Lakes, like, I'd never heard of any punk band playing anywhere. And I was definitely looking punked by, a month or two into South Lakes, and you would think that someone would have told me something about it, but Reston just being so rigid about anything being independent from the plans, and to this day, they don't have a skate park. I know there's one at Lake Fairfax, but that is technically not Reston. That's Oakton, I think.
Or Sterling.
No, I think it's either Oakton or Vienna, unless they've redone city boundaries or something. But regardless, with all those pools and tennis courts and fields, there's still not a skate park there, because that is the ultimate rebellious sport, I think, in the minds of Reston Association, and it was really a major culture shock moving from Encinitas, where my sister's freshman high school yearbook, there's Tony Hawk in her class, going from that kind of community of skateboarding, BMX, surfing being just part of the normal culture there, to being a taboo subject in Fairfax County.
Well said. That doesn't even tell the half of it. I mean, South Lakes itself was designed by an architect that designed jails.
Prisons, yeah. That fact has been removed off of Wikipedia, but that was somewhere on the internet a long time ago. And my sister used to call it South Lakes Penitentiary. It had no windows. It was really poorly designed.
Well, it intentionally had no windows because they thought that windows were distracting to kids. So they didn't want the kids to have windows.
That's Fairfax County. They're just, it's the most strict place I've ever been. They're so intolerant to anything. It's so white. That's the other thing about DC and Northern Virginia. It's a freak city. It's all white collar. There's no blue collar there, and so that's not conducive to art. Like, everything's so expensive there. So if you don't go get that corporate job right after college, you're a loser.
And there were also a lot, like you said, a lot of latchkey kids.
Oh, yeah.
There were so many kids whose, parents were both working during this time. Women's Lib had put a lot of, women back to work, and divorce rates had skyrocketed also, like you said.
Yeah.
And, the kids were just left at home to either watch TV, or they, maybe had an after school job, maybe were involved in some sort of, sport or something like that, but there just wasn't a lot of adult supervision. You could be wandering out in the woods, or you could be, just out on a lake. Or, you could be skating somewhere. Or you could, instead of watching TV, you could be playing guitar. Or playing bass.
There was a lot of police harassment that was, it was residents harassing the skateboarding children through, by using the police. There was a lot of that. And I think that also drove those skateboarders to pick up guitars. Was, I remember at South Lake Center a couple times, run-ins with the police. And this is before there was any signs there. They were trying to enforce something that was not any sort of policy, stated policy. It was, and instead of just telling them to F off, we took it like we were doing something wrong, which we weren't, and we were just we were the children of the homeowners there, and somehow because we weren't doing the right sport, we were bad. So I think it was a lot of that too, not having opportunities to be active in our own way without having the residents, the business owners, or the police harassing us, telling us we're bad people.
So Jam for Men was one of the rare things where the adults actually, or at least an adult in Patty Worsler, helped the kids to get something together, that was not part of the predominating culture, and
yes.
They could do something that was semi-supervised and semi-organized and actually allowed them to express themselves.
Yes. Yeah. Brian stated that Reston wouldn't go for it the first time around. We had to do it at Herndon. Honestly, I still to this day have a hard time grasping that Reston allowed that. And Reston was just, the whole vibe of Reston was so intolerant to anything that wasn't collegiate. It was a surprise, and they let us do it, and it was a success. It was a cold night, as I remembered that Jam for Men too. It was in January.
In terms of the Discord label, I'm curious, why do you think that there's this label that was so successful, that's housed in Virginia? It's associated with DC, but it's housed in Virginia.
Yeah, it still is, yeah.
And it was highly influential over all of these bands, obviously.
Yeah, I think so. I think LDK didn't champion that, but I'm sure that I know that they were Minor Threat fans. So
why do you think that the Reston bands weren't necessarily able to do something similar?
Oh, as compared to the DC Discord scene?
Yeah, why couldn't we have had our own Discord label?
Oh, we didn't have an Ian Mackay. They were just too young. Craig Harmison wrote most of those LDK songs, as I believe. He was 16 years old. The Teen Idols, they had just graduated high school, and then they recorded that 7-inch. I don't know. I'd have to get back to you on that. I've never really thought why.
A lot of the bands were able to record at Inner Ear. They're recording in a lot of times at the same studio.
Avail did. The other demos weren't done at Inner Ear.
Several were. Transillions recorded at Inner Ear.
Okay.
A bunch of bands that I've talked to.
Yeah.
Were able to record at Inner
later
Ear.
on, maybe later on, yeah.
During that time from Reston. I don't think that Don Zientara would have been, against recording any of these teenage bands if they were, if they were able to come up with the money.
Yeah, I think that was the other thing. It was just the money, and I mean they all pulled off decent demos. So that was never the fact that it wasn't on record. That didn't bother me. I mean you're in your car all the time, anyways, around Fairfax County. So just put that demo tape in the car. And that was fine with me.
I mean, I've heard for instance, I've heard the Avail Each Other record that Brian put together of all the collection of Avail demos that's on Bandcamp.
Okay.
I think it's great. I think those are tremendous recordings. I think that's a great album. It stands up to, anything else, even though it's not necessarily, an album per se. I mean, he put it together as sort of a compilation album. But it's unbelievable as like a document of their recordings. I love the Transillions record, Mouthful of Buildings. I love the LDK recordings that they did as Rest in Hardcore. They put out like an album, it's posthumous, I guess, for Andy, but those recordings are awesome.
Oh yeah, those that last thing they did, those are my pictures, except for the group photo. If you ever saw the tape.
So, I mean, I did not realize that was yours on their demo, that you did the photos for that.
The live shots, yeah, that was at the 930 Club, opening for the Cro-Mags.
I mean, just like that, the bands were playing bigger places, opening for big other bands.
Years later, not right at first.
Not at first, but I mean, the evolution could have been to something like that. I mean, imagine if we'd had our own Discord.
Yeah, again, they were just so young. Like that it was just crazy how young and talented these guys were. And again, this goes back to being Fairfax County, and they just don't promote art. And if they were, I guess, what's the word? If they were cultivated more, they might have turned it into a career. But Fairfax County, if you're not making money with what you're doing, you better find something that does, because you're not going to afford that a suburban house. That's the mantra there. So you just didn't have a lot of support. That, like I said, the cultivation for that seed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it does make perfect sense. I just wish somebody could have like stepped forward who was maybe a little bit older and said like, hey, we can record all this stuff, and instead of putting out demo tapes, let's put out actual albums. Let's press them. Let's see if we can pre-sell them or something like that, and get the money together, or find a few adults that are willing to stake us a little bit, show them the potential of this financially, and let's have our own like Rest in Hardcore label.
Yeah, that was never something that people mentioned or desired. And again, I think that just goes back to, this is just something you're doing while you're in high school, and then you're going to go get a real career here soon, because this art thing is not something that we tolerate here in Northern Virginia. I mean, what kind of outcome did you want? Did you want these bands to tour and make a career, a living out of it, or you just wanted better documentation? I mean, it's all there. It just wasn't, put on vinyl.
I guess I would have liked the bands to stay together a little bit
Yeah, me
longer
too. Yeah, me
and
too.
and see what could have happened
Absolutely.
if they
Absolutely.
stayed together like into their 20s.
Yeah.
And really tried to make a go of it in music.
Yeah, I think LDK would have been great for the Warped Tour. You know, particularly in the 80s, punk rock was still taboo. It was still like it was still kind of scoffed at by a lot of other musicians. So you know, again, being Fairfax County, there's just so much pressure to go to college and get a career. So it just wasn't there wasn't much driving that. As far as you know, the rest of the bands from my era of high school and whatnot, it was just too. They were a little ahead of their time. You know, like I said, something like the Warped Tour, something that could more safely expose teenagers to punk rock shows. You know, let's face it, the 930 Club. It was in a gritty part of Runtown, DC, and anything nighttime downtown DC. You know,
Yeah, it was
almost
sketchy as fuck
abandoned.
going down there. Like, I mean,
There was a lot of aggressive panhandlers, as I remember.
I'd be scared walking around there when I was 16.
Yeah, it was definitely a trial by fire, but it didn't matter. I was going to go to shows, and that was one thing I noticed. I went to a lot of shows and saw very, very few Reston people there. And these same people would come to all the Reston shows, but they wouldn't venture into DC, where I just knew I had to go see these bands. It didn't matter how, you know, as long as I could get down to the 930 Club, I was going to go.
What were the bands that you had to go see at the 930? And
Oh,
that you
7
saw?
Seconds. 7 Seconds was the first show I ever saw there. I remember walking into the 930 Club going, this is it? This is tiny. I thought it'd be some big place, and this is the old 930 Club. I'm sure you went there. But 7 Seconds just blew me away. That was one of the best shows I'd ever seen. It wasn't because it was the first show. That band was just on that year. They were just phenomenal. I saw GBH there a month later. That was phenomenal. About 5 or 6 of us piled into Craig Harmison's car and drove down to see the Adolescents, with Youth of Today opening for Adolescents at the 930 Club. That was good. Just, oh God, getting to see the Cro-Mags for my first time there. Just so many shows. There was just so many shows I saw there. And it's one big blur. They didn't give you the concert ticket. When you give them the ticket, they didn't give you a stub or anything. They just took the whole thing, so they don't even have like a good paper trail of it.
Yep.
But it
well,
was
as long as the memories last.
Oh, yeah. The 930 Club, that 7 Seconds show addicted me to live music, and to this day I struggle with that addiction.
Well, so in terms of you're now, rather than doing photography, you're doing videography mostly, right?
Yes.
And you're doing it with live shows pretty much exclusively, or?
Exclusively, yeah. I guess you could say I'm a documentarian of full sets of either bands that pay me or bands that I really like that I'm willing to do for free. But it's not what goes to YouTube is almost always not the camera audio. I separately record the audio to do it more correctly than what the camera audio does.
This one right here is called Full Circle. Silla, yeah, it's the mighty, mighty. 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 The heartaches and ten when the story begins, but now I'm bathing in the rivers of John. My journey began, I was in the promised land, swimming in my mama's water. And then there was a man that showed up on my side, a thief and robber of culture. He had a book in one hand and a whole heap of plans. I still return to Mama Africa. The diaspora from Ghana to America, all the way back to Europe, the triangle, that's where we are. Haiti and Jamaica, so many nations, they seem so spread apart. Yet we remain together, it's time to gather in the home of the art. Some say repatriation, but I return to what never left your heart. I said living in this nation, miseducation, teach you to keep away from the dark. But through a deeper meditation on the place of creation, Joshua is where him start. Mankind foundation, African garden, you'll never tear us apart again. The heartache set in when the story begins, but now I'm failing in the rivers of joy. My journey begins.
Well, the audio on your show sounds really good, especially like some of the reggae stuff that was on there. Sounded really, really great.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. I started off as being a taper, but I wasn't going to Grateful Dead shows and Fish shows. I was going to punk shows and taping it, and that definitely confused people. And I just, once video cameras became a lot more accessible, I decided to try to synchronize video and audio together, and sort of how it started. But it had to be good audio. I wasn't going to do it unless the audio was really good.
Man, it's a shame we didn't have that equipment back then, huh?
Oh my God. Yeah, I know. Trust me. Well, I didn't even know, like I'd seen some pictures of Walkmans that could record audio, but I never saw them I didn't realize that those were in the pro audio section of music stores. And if I would have known, I probably would have invested in one of those and bought a mic stand and yada yada. But I just didn't know, and I didn't have a lot of money, and I was more interested in photography then. But I definitely had an interest in recording live music, even back in high school. I was like, man, this needs to be this live show, not what's going on in the studio, but this live show needs to be recorded.
I agree. I wish somebody would have gotten it. I mean, I love what Brian posted the Avail show, because that is just great, and they recorded it with really good audio. I mean, it sounds really
I never
good.
saw that. I didn't until just like a month ago. I didn't know that existed. I was there, but I wasn't right up front. I was off to the side, and Remission played like I guess they only did Avail. I don't know, but yeah, that came out really good, and it's bizarre to see that Reston TV channel actually actively documenting that punk rock craziness. Like, you would have thought that would have never been allowed onto Reston cable channel.
Yeah, Channel 8.
Yeah.
It's wonderful being able to see a Vail full set there.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like, it's the closest thing to actually being there. But it would be so great to be able to see the whole thing. I mean, Avail didn't really filter down to me until they were already in Richmond, and I got Satiate on tape and loved it.
Yeah.
Joe
was selling that record at that Lugnut show, as I recall, and I bought Satiate on vinyl off of him.
I got to see like Lugnut, Sun Monkeys, Nemesis, bands like that playing at Jam for Man.
Yeah.
That was my version of Jam for Man when I was in high school.
And that was what year did you get to see this? Where were they playing?
So that's at the community center, and that's
But they weren't Jam for Mans. They were just shows.
No, they were Jam for Mans, and they were.
Okay.
So this is 92, 93, 94.
Okay, they were still calling it Jam for Man.
Still calling it Jam for Man. Still bringing cans of food there.
Okay.
Still trying to like wait outside for hours to get in.
Why?
Well, because there were so many people there, and they would only let like 300 people in.
I remember, trying to go see Avail sometime, one of those summers, and it was like they had only sold tickets at the high school. And, I'm not in high school anymore, and so I was sold out of it. So, well, that's great that they sold out. That's how desperate, the youth there was for something different, that they were selling out the community center, for something other than the team sports and all the municipal sports they had there.
Yeah, I mean, it was the coolest thing to come to Reston. It was the best thing that happened in Reston during those years. Until like Lollapalooza came. Like that was, that was our thing. Except for these bands were bands that went to our high school. These were guys that we were going to school with that were starting bands, and so, it's kind of like they used to say about like the Velvet Underground, or the Ramones. Like everybody that saw them went out and then started their own band. It's like after I saw Jam for Man, I knew that this was possible. This was something you could do. You didn't have to be a rock star.
Yeah.
To play in the band.
Yeah. And lots of the youth were interested in it. I remember after the second LDK Hostile Environment show was at Fan Vistas mom's house in the basement, and his mom was gone for the weekend, so it was sort of like, hanging out at Fans, and like the next day after that, being in that room, and there's I think Fans' brother's acoustic guitar, and I remember trying to play some of the stuff I heard Craig Harmison playing. I was so enamored of his guitar playing, and to this day, the reason why I play guitar is Craig Harmison.
So, in terms of this idea of a Jam for Man anniversary show, I'm curious about your thoughts and what your like ultimate lineup would be, and who you think might actually do it.
I mean, you realize it sounds like you got musicians scattered all over the country now.
Oh, yeah.
Matt Kozlowski said Jason Radley's in Ohio.
I guess. I didn't even, I haven't been able to track him down yet.
Yeah, I think that's what Matt said. I can't remember.
And Matt's in Texas still.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as far as it happening, good luck. I'm all about supporting it, however, it can be done that, to have guys that are in their 40s now show up to do something that they did in high school all over again. Is not everyone is possibly as nostalgic as you or I. I would love it though, but as far as like the lineups, I'd love to see LDK with Tim Berry on drums. Good luck though, but that's my fantasy. Avail with Brian Stewart on vocals. Hopefully Tim Berry can play drums, if not Doug Crosby.
Again,
Remission.
good luck.
Yeah, Remission. Remission was just so damn good. Obviously, Transilliance. I mean, I don't want to discredit any of the other bands, but those are the three bands that really stand out as, oh my God, yeah, I want to see that again. Those are the bands that played more shows, I think. It's not really so much as whether or not they're good. Those are the bands that, that was, like Remission was the ashes of Hostile Environment. They'd taken what they learned with Hostile Environment and then improved upon it. So it was just in their later years, all from freshman year to junior year. I would say those three, even though it's not really a Western hardcore, but I'd love to see Repercussion. Phenomenal. And I wasn't so moved by Go-Go. It was fun to listen to, but I don't really need a Split Decision reunion, but I would love it if they did. Clutchy Water would be cool too. I mean, Sam Gunnarson's one of my favorite guitar players. But I mean, I haven't even seen the bass player Lefty Fur, since probably '94. So who knows where those guys are anymore.
Well, I should be getting Sam on the show before too long.
Great.
Sam has agreed to do the show also at some point. Good. Even though they weren't hardcore, no one talked shit about them. It was everyone respected them and listened to them and whatnot and clapped for them. But it was a lot of balls for them to get up there on a stage in front of a bunch of punk and hardcore kids and play much more classic rock. But they were just such good, talented musicians that everyone respected them. And they were part of our scene. Yeah.
It was more just about bands and musicians that would play out, Like, you didn't have to be of a punk or metal moniker. You just, just as long as you were humble about it and supported, the bands that were playing live music, it was cool.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think Reston itself gave birth to a lot more than just Reston hardcore, and that there was just there was room for go-go, for funk, for classic rock, for some hip hop, and hardcore punk.
Oh, sure. I mean, again, though, it's like there was room, but you weren't going to be embraced after high school with it. You were, young man, you get off to college. This is Carter Blitch once told me years ago. His dad said to him, Carter's also has a career, but also is playing in JFA, and his dad said to him at one point, "The party's over." That's very typical white collar Northern Virginia mantra. That's your teenage thing now. Get a real job there, young man.
Well, I don't know about you, but I never want the party to end.
I know. that's why I got, you know, switch my career into this field.
Yep. I mean, that's why I'm doing this too. It's because I want to keep the party going and I want to keep the music alive.
Well, it's history, you know, like, as I stated before on your Facebook, on the Jams for Man Facebook page of yours, I've just never seen so much creativity come out of, you know, one town during such a short period of time.